something that I'm really glad I never have to do again. You know, I'm just like,
We are live.
All right.
Okay. So what is ICS? ICS was designed when there was a huge fire. I don't remember specifically which fire it was, but they had to involve multiple fire teams. Essentially what happened was, since they had multiple fire teams from multiple states, none of the fire teams were operating on the same radio channels with the same language, and they did not have the same systems involved, and there were a lot of different goals, different intents, and different directions being followed, and so there was no real direction. And so incident command systems, somebody else in here gave me a different word for it, integrated command systems, was developed to be used amongst schools. So teachers actually have to be trained in it, police and fire, so that police, fire, and I think EMT and who are the guys that go out in the water and help save people?
Lifeguards. Coast Guard.
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard.
I think Coast Guard.
Smaller level.
Yes, and.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think Coast Guard has to have it, so that everybody has a shared language and a shared understanding of what's happening, and there is a shared structure within, and so everybody knows that if somebody is incident command, that there is an incident command. They know who is in charge. Nobody says, but this person has higher rank, and so this person is in charge. No, this person is incident command. This person is in charge. I don't care if you have higher rank. This person is incident command. We do what they say until incident command is handed off. Rank does not matter. There is no rank does not matter. Station does not matter. Nothing matters. Incident command matters, and what you are in the chain of command matters within ICS. So the reason Flipside has adopted ICS is part of it is we have a fire team that has a bunch of actual firemen on it, and they really like ICS, and so they convinced us to adopt it because we have grown from a 30-person event to about 3,000 people. And because we now have multiple safety teams, we have 5 safety teams, it's a really good way to have a common language when we have big situations happening. And it is something that's amazing that can be used for unseen events and seen events, so such as planned events. So planned events are something such as Flipside itself. Flipside itself is a ICS event. Safety Side is a ICS event. The burn night is a ICS event. All of these things are ICS event with an incident command, with a plan, and with all of the structures underneath them. If something happens, and things have happened, we have had a tree fall, we have had a flood, we have had other incidents happen where we have put in incident command into action, and it has grown and it has shrunk as appropriate, and we have used this and it has worked very well, and as of yet, knock on any wood that you can find, we have had no fatalities. And part of that is due to the system that we have and how well we've worked together and how well we've used the system. So an incident defined within the ICS as an unplanned situation necessitating a response at Flipside would be drug-related incidents such as overdose, getting dosed, interactions with medications and drugs, or interactions with multiple drugs, or not taking prescription medications. Mental health incidents, such as somebody coming in and having a psychotic episode, somebody having a manic episode, somebody having a Wendy, you're not reading my mind.
Sorry.
I know. Dissociative episode, thank you. Relationship concerns, so domestic violence concerns, medical incidents, a heart attack, stroke, etc., weather-related concerns, flood, fire. Okay, so the heat last year, the 107-degree heat was not necessarily a ICS incident, even though we did have 5 people that did have to be taken to the local hospital, which no longer exists, by the way. It's not that they won't take us, because they're not allowed to do that. The local hospital does not exist, by the way. Now our closest hospital is Round Rock. Mother Nature trying to kill us. Trees falling on camps, ants, snakes, spiders, leeches, suicide attempts, safety third, accidents, lack of self-care, hydration, food, sleep, and shelter, and boundary and consent violations up into rape.
So the question is,
Right.
so it's more than just if any of these happens, it's an ICS incident. So, and is it simply if you need to bring in, does it become an ICS incident as soon as you need to ask rangers to come over, or if you need to ask rangers and vets, or what?
We are encouraged to, in our minds, think of everything on some ICS level, and I'll get deeper into that as we go. It becomes an actual ICS event that needs to be logged with CACI if it includes more than 2 safety teams.
Okay.
So,
But using the concept of an incident lead and that sort is appropriate in almost any of these situations.
Right. So if I am sitting with Hippity Hop and Hippity Hop needs a glass of water, I am incident commander, and you are my planning lead and my operations lead, and you are going to plan to get my water and go get my water and bring me my water for Hippity Hop. And, we get Hippity Hop their water, and I'm thinking 5 minutes out. So 5 minutes out, and I'll explain all of this in a minute, but yeah.
It helps give you a picture.
Yeah. So, and then when we think of ICS events, when we think of events, and events are defined with an ICS as planned situations. We're looking at safety side, flip side itself, and burn night. So key concepts that we're looking at are unity of command. So each individual participating in the operation only reports to one supervisor. And at safety side this year, that I think was where I saw things fall apart the most, was we did not have unity of commands. There was not one known supervisor. If somebody came and gave somebody an order, nobody said, I'm sorry, you are not my supervisor. I need to go to my supervisor and have them tell me what to do. They followed the command of the person who was giving them a command, and several people got injured, quote unquote, because it was a mock event. Pool noodles.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they'd had streamers for fire. Anyway, that would have made it awesome. But because there was no unity of command, people were injured. So one of the big things under unity of command is there is one person who's giving you instructions. And it can be very difficult to go, you are not my person in command. I need to go to my person in command. They have already given me instructions. You do not tell me what to do. I'm going back to them. But you are not my person in command, right? Even and that makes for an interesting situation. It creates a situation where there's less freelancing and there's less confusion. I know what I'm supposed to be doing because this person has told me what I'm supposed to be doing, because that person told them what they're supposed to be doing, because that person told them what they're supposed to be doing, down the chain. It all makes sense. There is a plan. We know what we're supposed to be doing. There is common terminology. Everybody is speaking the same language across teams. Safety, or fire and guardians and sanctuary and echelon and rangers, and all of us are even site ops. All of us are speaking the exact same language. There is no whiskey or bacon, which I don't even know what that means. Honestly, I think it means I got you or something like that. Or it means go drink some whiskey and eat some bacon.
Are those different?
I don't know. What these mean. There's common language. We know what they mean, and we don't have to guess. We use plain language at Flipside. We don't use those terms, which I know they've used in the past. We use plain language at Flipside. The one thing that changed for that is Code Orange Vest, and that is everybody go to your assigned place. That is the one thing that is different. Everybody go to your assigned place. This is an all hands on deck. Everybody that is a volunteer needs to respond. All hands on deck. Go to your assigned place. Within ICS, we manage by objective. Incidents are managed by aiming towards a specific objective. We are not just haphazardly trying to fix whatever's happening. If there is a fire, we don't run around like chickens with our heads cut off. The incident command is looking at the situation going, okay, what needs to happen? I need to plan this out. What are my objectives? I need to be smart. I need to think within specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goals. I need to be thinking about 5 to 10 minutes out. One of the big things about ICS is it is flexible and modular. It can get bigger and it can get smaller as it needs to. If is sitting there and she needs a cup of water, it can be me and pleasure, and that's it. And that's great. If all of a sudden she starts having a heart attack, all right, well now it's a whole different ball of wax. Now I need pets, site ops, and khaki. Now, instead of a glass of water, now this is a Code Orange Vest event because I'm now involving more than 2 groups. I need an entire group of people to respond. Even though I am not the most medically trained person involved, I can still retain command, which is not necessarily what people think. People would think that because I'm not medically trained, I should probably hand over command to pets the second they get there. But that's not what it is. I still get to retain command because I'm just the one thinking 5 minutes out. But I can expand the situation until we can contract it again. So then the next common term is span of control. So I should only have between 3 and 5 people under me. If there are more than 3 to 5 people under me, I have lost span of control of the situation. There are too many people for me to keep track of as an individual, and I need to put somebody else in charge of other people. That is what chiefs and lieutenants are for. So if I am incident command of this situation, then I need to create a planner. I need to now create positions that will be in charge of certain things so that I don't have to be in charge of every single little thing, right? I'm now expanding the situation and I don't have to be in charge of everything. So we are still talking about key concepts. Incident action plans. They make sure everybody is working towards the same goal. So there is a plan. There's not a, oh my God, what are we doing? So Hip Hop's on the ground. She's having a heart attack. The plan as incident command is to get her in an ambulance. You know, if I'm looking 5 minutes out, my plan is to get her in an ambulance, off grounds, and to an ER. That is my plan, right? Everybody's aware of this plan, or at least everybody who needs to be aware of this plan. We're all in agreement of this plan, and the plan is moving forward. And then we have general staff. So within the general staff, and easy to remember the ICS agencies is CFLOP. I don't know why we use this, but it does work, okay? You know, whatever. We have Hip Hop over here, but whatever I call it, we have CFLOP. So we have command, finance, logistics, operations, and planning. Command is the one that's in planning. Finance is the one with the money. Logistics is the one that gets the stuff. Operations is the one that does the stuff. Planning is the one that writes everything down. Writes the stuff. Yeah. And then professionalism.
Where you're going with this is that in order, like in this example with the ambulance, in order for us to get the ambulance there, we have to notify people outside of Flipside that we need something using the same language. So,
yes. Yeah. So, well, and with professionalism, there's accountability.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have accountability on all jurisdiction levels. So all of our teams are accountable to each other and to ourselves. We need to check in regardless of affiliation. So our teams check in. We know who we check in with. We know where we're supposed to check in. And we check out. We don't just wander off once the situation is over. If I check in at Sanctuary, I check out with Sanctuary. I don't just go off when I'm done. Stick to the plan. Don't freelance. We will go over freelancing later. If you, again, unity of command, you have only one supervisor. This is really difficult because when you're in a high stress situation and somebody gives you an order, our instinct is to follow orders, especially if we're like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? I want to follow an order. Stick to command. I know who I'm supposed to be reporting to. Listen to that person. Okay, so transfer of command. This is the scary one. I'm trying to make sure. Okay. So transfer of command is going to be kind of a big idea here. If you are IC and you realize that you are not qualified to be IC, you are going to want to hand off, or let's say I'm IC and I realize that I'm going to need to be a hands-on person in this situation. If I'm IC and I need to be hands-on, so let's say Hip Hop tells me that she was sexually assaulted and I'm IC, well, I can no longer be IC. I'm gonna have to hand off IC because now I need to be hands-on as the MHA or as the lead. I no longer get to be IC because if I have to take a hands-on role, somebody else has to be coordinating and directing and do all of these things. There are very specific steps to transferring control. One of the big things to know about transferring IC is it says nothing about who you are or about how smart you are or about how good you are or about how qualified you are as a person. It says absolutely nothing about you as a person. If you are an MHA and you need to hand off control to a listener because they are more qualified, it says nothing about who you are because I'm an MHA and like I said, I might have to hand off control to somebody because I need to be the MHA for this person and so I've got to hand off to somebody.
No listeners there.
And the listener's there. So it doesn't matter. And they might be the most, I mean, hell, they might be the most qualified person in the universe because they're an EMT and they can see the thing all the way through. It doesn't matter. So it says nothing about me that I'm handing this off to my listener. And that's it. We have to not take things personally in this situation. So within transfer of command, the new IC, if they're not already there and they don't know what's going on, they should walk in and they should observe the scene because the steps should be, is the scene safe? Am I safe? Is everybody safe? So everybody say that real quickly out loud. Is the scene safe? Am I safe? Is everybody safe? And any new person coming onto the scene should always say that even if they have instructions. Is the scene safe? Am I safe? Is everybody safe? Because if the person that is giving me commands just told me to run into a situation with a live electrical wire, I don't care that there's unity of command. I'm not going to get electrocuted. I don't care. I'm not going to create two victims. Since Pleasure was there with me, he's probably already seen it. But if he wasn't, then I'm going to give him a brief rundown of what's happened and what I've already done. Who, what, where, and when, what has been done, what resources have been used. Then the new incident commander is going to determine appropriate time for transfer of command. If he needs to take 5 to 10 minutes and he needs to wait and say, I need you to wait 10 minutes before you give me this. I need to go do this and this and this and this. Then we need to wait 10 minutes. She's going to need to wait 10 minutes. That's just the reality. You have to notify the agencies. One of the things that I forgot is, actually, I'll get to that in a minute. What happens if I am command? Notify the agencies. Since we are doing sanctuary, notify the agencies, sanctuary, khaki, Foxfire. I'm handing command of this incident to Pleasure as of 14:56 or 2:56, whether you're comfortable using military time or whatever. And then we allocate the resources as needed.
So when you say agencies, do you mean basically everyone who has already been brought in and is currently under your command?
Yes. Okay, the concept of freelancing. Freelancing is making decisions outside of the chain of control, or chain of command. So freelancing is nobody knows what you're doing. You haven't even been brought into command yet, and you are making decisions that nobody knows what you're doing or what's going on. This is different from making decisions that need to be made because you know what's happening in the immediate situation, and then you are informing everybody else as to what's going on. Freelancing is
it's me walking up on the scene, I have no idea what's going on, I have not checked in with anyone, and I start trying to get the ambulance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Or you kneel down and start talking to
Right.
hip hop and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this brings me to a question I had earlier, which is, Ocean was stuck under a pool noodle. And so it seems like it's not freelancing if I don't think other people dealing with it and I take the initiative and start trying to deal with this very pressing and immediate problem that I am aware of and other people are, as far as I can tell, are not.
You need to check in with incident command.
Who's in command?
I say if there isn't a command, then you are command.
Then I would be command.
Yes.
But
Right.
so I guess what I was trying to cover is for things that are trying to ask about is for things that are like present as imminent danger kind of situations.
So hang on. Okay, hold that question for just a minute.
Of course.
And when we get to what happens if I am command.
Okay.
And we'll see what happens if there's a command and if there isn't a command. Okay. So there's a difference between freelancing and taking initiative. And it is a very fine line. Taking initiative and what you're talking about is there's clear and present danger. Like this is, she's gonna die. And you have to look at, is the scene safe and am I safe? Is everybody safe? Am I gonna be creating two victims? And unfortunately, in that situation, if you are gonna be putting yourself into danger, closer.
I stay back,
Yeah.
but make sure everyone who needs to know about this needs to know as best I can. Yeah.
Yes. And nobody likes that answer. We're sanctuary. No, I mean, we're all safety. We're all safety. We want to run in and save. This is what we do. And the first rule of lifeguarding is don't create two victims, because now we got to run in and save your ass, or now you're dead. And we not only have to deal with their death, but we got to deal with your death too. And I not only have to deal with helping people with your death, but I got to deal with helping all of us with your death and my own feelings about your death. So thanks for that.
And the whole point of checking in is because you might see only a piece of the puzzle that's happening, and in going up the chain of command, they'll know more aspects of it than you might not be aware of.
Right. So like Sparky might have already seen that and have 5 plans in effect to take care of that because he's seen it and he's command. And now you're running in
And that's a problem.
and you've destroyed 5 of his plans, all 5 of his plans.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
So ICS is not a bureaucracy. It is a dictatorship. And it is completely antithetical to everything that we do in sanctuary. And there are some people who are no longer allowed to volunteer with safety because they cannot handle this concept. Because they do not like this transition. And they struggle with this transition. And they resist this transition. And they're no longer allowed with safety or any of the safety teams anymore. Because they want to rodeo it. They want to be the cowboy. So this ICS is a dictatorship. And in sanctuary, I'm a dictator. Okay, maybe not.
I thought part of the point was whoever's in any given incident, who knows where you'll end up in the structure.
Right, exactly.
Right. Well, that's why I used the example that I did with this person who's, in distress. As an MHA, whether or not I'm on call, I might have that urge to be like, oh, I can help with this situation. Like, I'm professionally trained. But I'm not in command and I have not checked in, and I can have all the experience in the world, but that is potentially already addressed. And if it's not, then I'm going to know where I fall in the process of getting it addressed if I check in with my leader, even if that leader is a listener and not necessarily professionally trained. They're going to have a view of it that I don't.
And I will tell you, and this was not in sanctuary or a flip side, it was actually in my martial art, where somebody was really struggling with something, and I was just being, you know, a mental health professional, and I was walking in, and I was like, take a breath, and blah, blah, blah. And the person that was working with them was a black belt, and at the time I was not, and they said, you are disrespecting me as the black belt. You are acting as though I don't know how to handle this. And bitch slapped me back down. And I was like, yes, ma'am. I will go sit back down now. I forgot. I'm not the only person in the world that knows what to do. So we do need to know what our internal terms are. Khaki is kind of our guardian, our guardian angel. Wouldn't you call it? They're the person that oversees us and kind of watches over all of us and makes sure that we don't set ourselves on fire. Am I wrong?
I've been perennially confused by who khaki is, so I'm just listening.
You have to do 6 ranger shifts in order to sit at the khaki table and run the radio. They are essentially the person that runs the radio and
Rangers, the Rangers radios.
Ranger, yeah.
Okay.
Rangers, the Ranger
Khaki
radio.
is basically
They're
just the
Ranger
lead ranger.
dispatch. And
Yeah.
yeah, and Ranger League.
They're at Ranger HQ. They're there. That's where they're stationed. That's where they stay, and they are where all the Rangers are.
Well, they're kind of aware of where we are as well. I mean, not completely because they don't run us, but they're kind of our guardian angel. They know where they know where their Rangers are, but they're going to send them out to us, and they kind of have an idea of where we are and what we do, and
They're probably the most aware of what's going on across the whole event.
yeah. So the-
guardian angel. Okay.
Omniscient, they're just here.
Yeah, because that's khaki. If anybody didn't know what khaki was, actual is the LLC member on call. So that's the board. So MHA is the duty chief. The tree is the shift supervisor, and our listeners are hands-on. So if there is an incident, first and foremost, if you are not on shift, you have to have your shirt on, period. The reason that we want you to have your shirt on is because if you show up and you don't have your shirt on, you are just some random asshole that wants to help. And believe me, if there is an incident, there will be hundreds of random assholes that want to help. I was camping next to the tree that fell, and we all heard it. It sounded like a waterfall. You could hear it. I was a camp and a half away. You could hear it, and I came out, and I was like, who is pouring 100,000 gallons of water on our camps? And then I watched the tree fell, and the next thing I noticed was a panicked woman running up to the tree and screaming, can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? And we had to drag her away going, if anybody could hear you, they can't respond because they can't talk over you. There were many, 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 many helpful people. So if you don't have a shirt on, you are a random helpful person. You need to have your shirt on. Otherwise, I don't know all of our volunteers by face.
I think it's also helpful to know, like, when we're talking about, like, who, like, when you're saying things like go to your station or, like, follow who is in command of your safety team. If I'm wearing my sanctuary shirt, I know that that's who I belong to. So if a ranger came up and was like, I need this, but they're not sure who the lead is, oh, that would be this person who's it. But they can come up to you and know that. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So,
And you know who you belong to,
right.
what team you're a part of.
You know what team you're a part of. So have your shirt on. I don't care if you can't find your sanctuary shirt, but you can find your burn night perimeter shirt because you're doing burn night perimeter. Have a shirt on. I don't care. Have a shirt on because you need a shirt. I don't care if you have your shave and ape shirt on, because you did a shave and ape shirt shift. Shaven apes shift. Have a shirt on so you look like you're supposed to be there. And then check in with where you're supposed to check in. If check with sanctuary, the tree needs to go back to HQ. Listeners need to go to HQ. MHA needs to go to incident command. So if incident command is not at the site, MHA needs to go to incident command and check in with incident command and say, sanctuary is here. I have listeners that are available. Let me know what you need them to do. And then, and here's where things get confusing. MHA, tree needs to let MHA know how many listeners are available, because of course we may have 10 listeners show up in t-shirts, you know, and then command will tell MHA what he needs, and it's probably going to be perimeter, or keep your people there because we will be sending people back that need assistance, right? For the most part, sanctuary is either perimeter or helpers, which is why we go back to sanctuary HQ, because we're going to be sending people back to sanctuary who are in distress, or we're going to be needed for random tasks.
Or there might already be people in sanctuary who are needing support that are not a part of this incident.
Right. Or that know to go to sanctuary. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And whoever is in the field needs to be keeping the tree updated, because the tree is trying to essentially build a map blindly. The tree is trying to understand what's happening in the field and draw a map based on what everybody else is telling them. So all of these moving pieces need to communicate as well as possible. And that's difficult with radio chatter happening everywhere. There's going to be multiple channels because a separate channel will be created for the incident. So it's going to be fun, but what we need to know is sanctuary volunteer listeners go back to sanctuary HQ. Tree, if they're not there already, goes back to sanctuary HQ. MHA goes to command, right? Okay. How do we know if it's an incident? Think of everything as an incident, just so we can practice thinking of ICS, because I know I have a hard time wrapping my head around ICS in general. And if we think of everything as ICS, then we practice it a little bit more. Those who attended Safety Side, Sparky gave us after the debrief, he ran us through it as he would run it through it. And it was like watching somebody who had memorized the lines in a play. It was insane. And I will never be that good because I don't do it on a daily basis, and Sparky does. It was really intense. It was like somebody trying to do therapy like I do therapy. I do therapy on a daily basis, and I've been doing it for 50 years. You know, it just, he knows what he's doing. But if you want to understand it, run the incidents like you would. I'm incident command. I need to plan 5 minutes out. What are my resources? Is the scene safe? Am I safe? Is everybody safe? If I'm IC, the IC is a manager, not a doer. The manager doesn't do. The manager manages. So if as a doer, that is hard for me to do. I like doing. I have a hard time not doing. As sanctuary lead, I'm having a really rough time with that. That's why I have friends that tell me, Marissa, put that down.
Or banana.
Yes. ICS is the incident command, the commander is responsible for the big picture. They have planners, they have operations, they have logistics to help them with that. They don't need to be responsible for every little tiny decisions. That's what they have other people there for. You do want to be thinking 5 to 10 minutes out. Other than that, incident command is working on getting the problem down to small pieces. If you don't feel like you are competent or feel safe enough, or you're too triggered to do that, hand it off. It is okay to do that. The takeaways, the things that I want you to remember before I open this up to some questions. This is a huge change from how we used to think of things at Flipside. I think it was when I first came in that we started to switch over. So it's been about 5 years that we've really started using ICS at Flipside. And we've really started to embrace it, and it's really worked. Floodside was the first year that we had a massive event where the property got flooded. We had 3 pieces of land that were not covered in water. We had to do water rescues. It was insane. Water was up to dashboards on cars. ICS was enacted. There were 3 incident commands, and it worked. People knew what they were doing. They knew what they were supposed to be doing. They knew where they were supposed to be, and everybody was safe. It built up, it came back down, and it worked. We know what to do. We know where we're supposed to be. A sanctuary, it sounds really big, but the things that you need to know is get your shirt, go to Sanctuary HQ, listen to your tree. Somebody else tells you what to do, nicely as possible, tell them to fuck off and go back to your tree.
What if it's your MHA?
Tell them my tree has told me to do something else. Yeah. Because they are jumping command. And ultimately, your MHA should be following the chain of command.
So if I needed listeners, I would go to my tree.
Yes.
Okay, I need listeners, who would then go to you. So it works both ways, right? It's not just about you following directions from that person, but me giving directions down too.
I think it's like, okay, well, the MHA is on scene and the tree is at Sanctuary. If I was sent to the situation, so it's like first listen to the tree,
Mhm.
and then if they send me over to the MHA, then follow the MHA.
Then if you're on scene, they're probably gonna say, go to the scene and do what the MHA tells you to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes at that point, you've been transferred to be directly into the MHA
Exactly.
instead.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's listen to the tree and then do whatever the tree says. If they say to go to the MHA, do what they say.
Right.
Yeah.
And then at that point, if incident command comes and tells you what to do, you're gonna be like, but my MHA told me to do this.
Yeah.
Because they should be giving commands down. Yeah.
Good question.
So I can't remember what question was asked earlier about, it was
Yeah, I was wondering about how to deal with imminent harm effectively in a situation where it's, and we talked about it to some extent, but I guess, and I think we maybe addressed it, but that was what I think you wanted to go back to.
and ultimately, we go back to the concept of freelancing versus making educated. So if there are 4 different incidents happening, so I know 2 years ago at Safety Side, we had a dosing, a sexual assault, a bank collapse, and then in front of me, somebody was trying to go back to the bank collapse and slipped and broke his leg. Right? So I and I had pets next to me, and we needed to get him out of the bank collapse. So instead of trying to go through the radio chatter and go through incident command, I contacted Sanctuary and had Sanctuary bring me the cart down to get this guy up to pets. So was that freelancing, or was that,
Being in command of that particular incident.
well, it's not an incident because it's still under the original incident. I made that mistake. I called it a new incident. That was my mistake, was I did call it a new incident, and it was not, and I was corrected on that. It was not a new incident. It was considered the same incident. It was not a new incident. It was the same incident. But was that freelancing, or was that showing initiative?
Did your person know what you were doing?
Yeah, but that's.
I was communicating with Khaki. I was communicating with Khaki. Command was absolutely overwhelmed.
Incident command.
Incident command was absolutely overwhelmed. And I tried 3 times to get through to incident command, and he was not responding.
Okay.
And I tried 3 times to get through to Khaki, and they were not responding.
So I hear you saying that that is not freelancing.
I will put that out there for people to give me feedback. I do not feel as though it was freelancing. I feel as though that was taking initiative.
And so what I hear is that these imminent danger situations can be kind of gray areas, if you will.
Right.
And what we're talking about here is making sure that the communication in the same language is happening throughout all of the systems, so that if you are unawareingly freelancing, that can be remedied as quickly as possible.
Right.
So one of the critical things that I take away from what you said is that first you tried to contact incident command, your immediate superior presumably,
Yes.
and tried to contact someone else who might sort of know what was going on.
Yes.
And if that fails, you're just like, okay, no one else is standing here trying to do this thing, and I don't see any obvious reason I can't. So let's go away from the main problem.
We have to get this person off the
Yeah,
bed.
get away.
This is an
Yeah.
imminent danger.
Okay, yeah. So this also brings me to another thing I was thinking of, which is how do you know if you're first to the scene?
If you see something happen, if you walk upon something and nobody else is doing anything about it, that's a good indication. But I mean, like, if there's an issue, if there's a safety issue and somebody's in danger and you don't see anybody even looking at them, then you're command.
Also, in order to call it, you have to have a radio, so you probably would have heard.
Right. Okay. I have not said that. In order to be in command, you have to go break, 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 break. You are not waiting for a break in the radio. You are calling break, 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 break. This is a code orange vest event. Again, this is a code orange vest event. I am at chair camp on, whatever path I'm on. This is pleasure. I am in command. So if, you are contacting, you are calling a code orange vest event, you are saying clearly out loud, I am in command. There is no question that a incident has been called, and I apologize for not making this as clear as possible before. If command has not been called already, then you are first on command, or first on scene, and you are calling command. So that was the other thing that happened, was nobody called command. Nobody knew who was in command.
Nobody called code orange vest.
Nobody called a code orange vest. They just happened to bring. So if somebody had called a code orange vest and said they were in command, you could have called a code orange vest and said you were in command 5 minutes later, and you could have been right. Yeah.
So that's how you avoid the ambiguity.
That is how you avoid the ambiguity.
which is correct.
It doesn't matter who the first person on the scene is, the first person who calls Code Orange Vest and says, I am in command, clearly and authoritatively, and that is the person that is in command. And
that becomes your name for the rest of the incident is command.
yes,
Oh, okay.
You're then command.
You are
This is
then command.
Just so because not everybody's gonna hear exactly what your name is.
Yeah, and it's harder to remember than just command.
yes,
That makes sense. So to bring it back to the story we talked about earlier, where there was silly things going on with the effigy, there was stuff going on with the effigy, and there was a thing that had collapsed, and one
Yes.
of those effectively got dropped. And you
yes,
said that you counted it at 5 minutes, that's ugly and all that. But does that mean that if I had been sitting there with a radio and I had listened for a moment and I had my radio on the whole time, I've not heard anyone call command, I've only heard people talking about something else, I would then break and take command of this.
yes,
Okay. This addresses the boundaries that I wanted to have declared. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the one thing that I want to be made very clear, if nobody has called command, do not hesitate for a second to call command, because the second somebody else gets there, you can hand off command. Even if you're going, there's no way I can handle this. I cannot command this. This is way bigger than I can ever manage. I can't do this.
As soon as you call Code Orange Vest, everybody's gonna converge on you.
Everybody.
And so it'll be easy to pass it off if you want to.
And then as soon as Sparky gets there, you're like, Sparky,
So let me, just to clarify, so what if someone had called the effigy thing as a command? So sort of but they're clearly sort of separate incidents because they're not directly
but
overlapping.
the effigy thing is already a command. That's been a command thing. That's a command thing now. That's already.
Because it's an event, not an incident. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm. I forgot that.
That already a planned ICS event. That already has Doc is already the command of that, is in command of that, and
And one of the things that went wrong in that situation is the person who is in command of that should not have tried to be in command of the other one as well.
correct.
Because it's too complicated.
Yes, his scope got taken too far away.
And it's a good reminder that, again, if you're in a situation that you feel like you cannot have control over, him calling command allowed for the Code Orange Vest to happen so he could then pass it off and
Yes.
return back to it. So even if it's in that situation something you can't handle, that's better than not calling the incident at all.
Yes.
Yeah, at least you've pulled in the resources.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So what you guys have done very well for me is you've shown me where I need to modify this training quite a bit. I appreciate that. So we're gonna have to do this again next year. But it is done for this year. Woo!
Is there questions up there?
I don't see any.
I don't
text.
see any.
So I may have been totally crazy, but I think you may have missed one side of the sheet of paper when you're turning. Right towards the end.
That might be why I didn't talk about what to do, because well, I don't have on there like do the break, and I don't have that on here at all.
The
So
whole
it's not-
initiation
Yeah,
part of it.
I don't-
It would be on the second to last page.
yeah. So you've shown me where I need to improve this, and I very much appreciate that. So I won't make Wendy do it because she's been through several of my trainings multiple times.
But aren't we supposed to go, not grow?
All right. I love you guys.
Okay.
Thank you for staying.
Welcome. This means I don't have to